Hi, and welcome to Tech Talk, where we talk about what's going on in technology news and give you some insights that hopefully are useful. It's a big week this week in mobile. Mobile World Congress is going on. Samsung has the new S10 out. There's a lot of talk about folding phones and 5G. I'm Ken Mingus, Executive Editor at Computer World. I'm here with Dan Rosenbaum. We're going to talk about all that in just a minute, so stick around. Okay, so Dan, thanks for being here. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Big week in mobile. Obviously there's a lot of stuff going on around Mobile World Congress. You had the recent Samsung announcement of its S10 line, not just one phone, but 3 or 4, depending on how you count it. Folding phones are in the ether. And so I thought it'd be a good chance to talk to you. I guess we should probably start with the S10 because you have had that in hand for a few days to sort of get a feel for what it's like. And so let me just ask you right off the bat, did Samsung deliver this year? Is this an evolutionary phone or a revolutionary phone?
Well, it's an evolutionary phone. There are 4 phones in the S10 line. There's the S10e, which is the smaller one, the regular S10, which is the sort of normal size, and the S10 Plus, which is their plus size phone. But you can order them now, and they're going to be delivered, I think, the beginning of March. But there's a 4th phone. There's the S10 5G.
Yep.
And that one's not going to be available till the second quarter sometime. So that one is a little bit revolutionary, but the S10 line in general is pretty evolutionary set of phones.
So basically 3 different phones, 3 different price points, 3 different screen sizes, I assume.
Right.
And then
that's it. I mean,
go ahead.
The small one is 5 point something. The big one is 6.4. I'm looking down so I can pick it up. That's the S9, and this is the S10. It's you can see it has very little bezel to it.
Yep.
And the screen blanks out because in all demos, of course, the screen blanks out. But you can see that screen. And here's the S9. Here's last year's phone. I'll put them back to back. And you can see
Yep.
they're the same size.
Yep. Exactly.
Okay? But the bezel, there's last year's phone.
Yep.
And you see the nose and the chin.
Yep.
And here's this year's phone. Somewhere this year.
Got it.
You see
Yep.
very, very little bezel to it.
Right.
So the screen is a huge upgrade from last year to this year. And it's got the latest chip.
That's
the
Snapdragon 855, I think.
855 this year, yeah. And let's see if I can get this to show. You can see the fingerprint mark.
Yep.
Okay? That's an in-screen fingerprint sensor. They moved the sensor from the back to the bottom in the chin. Now it's under the screen.
Got it.
And in the top 2 or the top 3, if you want to count the 5G, trim lines, they have what they call an ultrasonic fingerprint sensor. So it not only can tell the 2D where the whorls and the ridges are, but 3D. So I guess in order for someone to break that, you need to like cut off their thumb or something and then plug it in. They say it's more secure. I'll take their word for it. That's not a test I think Computer World wants you to run.
No, please let's not cut off any thumbs until we have to. Let me ask you though, as you've used it, have you had any problems using the new sensor, the thumbprint sensor on the front of the screen? Does it work?
No, it's pretty quick. When it works, it's very quick. It's a little finicky, and I'm not sure if that's user error or technology error.
Yeah.
They pushed an update between the time they sent this to reviewers and the time that the embargo came off, and we could start writing about it and talking about it, and it made it better. So it's coming. It's fine. I don't think it's as convenient as Face ID myself.
Yeah.
But Face ID isn't an option in Android really, and the fingerprint sensor is really fine there.
Okay, I know that when Samsung rolled these out, that one of the things they were talking about, well, they talked about 3 things. They talked about the screen, which you've mentioned. They've talked about the upgraded hardware inside, speed and performance.
Sure.
And they also talked about the cameras. Have you had a chance to try the cameras yet and see how they deliver on what Samsung's promising in terms of photos?
They really do. upper end Samsungs, you can see, or maybe you can't see,
Yep.
there are three cameras back here:
Yep, I can see them.
normal wide and ultra wide angle. And the night cameras are just amazing now. So between the Android's improvement, between the improvement in the cameras themselves that Samsung's put on, the cameras are really terrific. I don't know if there's a huge business application for them, but the cameras are very, very nice.
Yeah, it's interesting that I really have been impressed with what Android's been doing on the computational photography side. To me, that it feels like they've sort of moved beyond Apple a little bit there in terms of the final product. We'll see. Of course, every year it's one-upsmanship. But okay, so sounds like solid phones. I took an early look at your review, which will be on Computer World soon, and you make a very good point that these are very good phones. But given the fact that we're sort of on the cusp of the move from 4G to 5G, are they the right phone at the right time? So maybe this is a good chance to sort of shift into a little bit about where we're going with the the 5G, which is not available yet from Samsung. Won't be out until, I guess, before the middle of the year.
Second quarter, before the middle of the year.
Yeah.
And they're talking, really, really soon. I think it bothered them a lot that they couldn't get the phones available at the beginning of March with the rest of them. Mm-hmm. These phones come out at a really funny time in the industry. These are maybe the last big flagship 4G phones you're going to see. And I have to wonder if it makes sense to be buying a really expensive 4G phone. The 10 Plus comes out to $1,000 mm-hmm. For the entry price for that trim of phone. And phones now getting replaced every 3 years. So today, right this
right
instant,
now, yep.
There isn't a lot of 5G out there. There are some trials going on in 4 or 5, maybe 10 cities around the United States, and a couple more overseas. In a year, there are going to be major deployments out and running. In 3 years, 5G is going to be a really common thing. So do you want to be buying a really good, expensive phone that you're going to be using in 3 years that isn't going to be using the fastest network and most capable network available? I don't know.
I wouldn't.
I don't know. That's a really, really hard piece of calculus for a business to do.
Yeah.
And I think Samsung is really getting hung right on the tip of that hook. It's when they do their product announcements. It's their clock.
Yeah.
They do a big announcement at Mobile World. They do a big announcement in the summer. In the summer, we'll probably see something else, and maybe a lower price 5G phone, although lower prices don't really seem to be how that market's going.
Yeah, I don't see the market sort of backsliding like that. It is interesting because, obviously there are improvements across the line, in terms of comparing to last year before. So maybe if you've got a 2 or 3 year old phone and you really do need to upgrade, these are perfectly suitable upgrades. But but as long as you know that you're buying a device that's pretty much at the end of the line when it comes to networking in terms of 4G. And unless, I guess, you hold out for the 5G device, in which case you're sort of buying ahead of the curve because 5G, the network itself, isn't really there yet. But in a year, you've got a good phone that's got 5G capabilities that theoretically would be able to, work with the new networks.
Theoretically, although 5G is a little bit of a moving target. I mean, there are 3 different bands. I don't know if this new 5G phone will be able to work with all bands. I don't know if all bands are even going to be widely deployed within the next 3 years. So 5G is a hard thing on the carrier side. It requires a lot more towers.
Yeah.
It requires a lot more bands, a lot more bandwidth. The backhaul problems are immense because you're pushing a lot more data through. So 5G is a harder problem than even 4G was, and 4G was no walk in the park.
Yes, I remember. In fact, all of this kind of reminds me of the early days of Wi-Fi, when there was 802.11a and B and C and N and ABG, and and you could buy routers and you could buy devices that would work with specific routers and things, but they didn't all play together, and you might not get the latest networking that you wanted. And so here we are at the edge of 4G, 5G, and lots of promises around 5G, better bandwidth, better ability to access a signal in crowded places. But it's not really there yet, other than in these trials. And in fact, even in a year, it may be more widespread, but how widespread it'll be, is anyone's guess.
My understanding was there was a demo at Mobile World the other day where a telecom executive placed what was supposedly the first live public video call outside of China using 5G.
Okay.
And this call went from one end of the stage to the other end of the stage. And it didn't go very well.
Oh, no. When you talk about demos, that's one of the ones you might want to get right. You want to practice that so it's just absolutely 100% seamless. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing about it. As you say, this is very complicated technology. And, as the carriers are trying to roll this out, and the hardware, the device manufacturers are trying to match up the radios they've got in the devices to the network that's coming, there's a lot of room for, if not error, at least a mismatch between the device and the networks that are coming. I personally, I usually upgrade my iPhone every year because I like to get the latest and greatest, but I've been seriously thinking about holding off this year because we are sort of on that cusp, and I'd like to see where Apple goes in 2020. I don't think there's going to be a 5G phone from Apple this year, but I think there might well be one in 2020. And I mean, if someone like me, if I'm thinking of holding off, then it might make sense, for what it's worth.
Yeah. And for a business buyer or an IT department, this is a big deal. This is a problem. This is a lot of money at stake. And maybe the thing to do is to not get a full $1,000 a top of the line flagship phone, to step back to something, the OnePlus phone, the OnePlus 6T.
Mm-hmm.
Perfectly good phone, maybe half a generation behind, 4G phone, and it goes for only, and you should put the only in air quotes, only $550.
Right.
So, that's still a fair amount of change. And if you really want to really save money, well, swallow your pride and go for something cheaper. I mean, there are Android phones out there for $100.
Yep.
It is not written in stone somewhere that your executives have to be carrying $1,000 phones that are going to be, out of date in 6 months to a year.
Right.
And not out of date in this isn't the hottest, fastest, coolest thing. I mean out of date. It's not going to be using the fastest technology available.
Right, exactly. I mean, so you can save money on both ends. You can save money on getting a less expensive phone, and and use the technology that's out there now, and then wait for the network to arrive. Make sure you got the right device, and then if you're going to spend however many hundreds you're going to do, at least that you're getting the right device that's going to work on the network the way you think it will.
Yeah. Now they're going to take away my tech journalist card for saying that you shouldn't buy the fastest, most expensive thing. But I think maybe in this case, the fastest, most expensive thing might not be the best thing that you want to be splurging on.
Yeah, and it's also interesting that this comes at a time, obviously the mobile phone market in general seems to have been slowing down. There seems to be a lot of saturation in some of the more, developed countries. And so you've got phones being unveiled at a time when sort of we're in the middle of this networking change. I'll be curious to see how these things sell. In the same way, I'll be curious to see how Apple devices sell this year, given that I think there is a growing recognition that we are moving toward 5G. That it's not here yet. I mean, even though AT&T says it's got some, it's got some FACO network that it says is like.
Oh, don't get me started.
Yeah,
I call that 4G. That's not.
It is 4G, exactly. Exactly. So we're at a transition point. It's going to be interesting. Let me ask you. Speaking of transitions, obviously something else that's been in the news the last week or so, last couple of weeks, folding phones. And I have to admit, I'm not a big folding phone fan in terms of trying to say that 3 times quickly. In terms of form and function. I'm not quite sure what the use case is there, and especially given the prices. I mean, these things are running, $1,900, $2,500, $2,600. That's a very expensive. I mean, a very expensive device. And anyway, what do you think? I mean, is this a fad?
I think we agree. I mean, folding electronics has been something that's been building for 5, 6, 7 years. There's actually a really interesting technology standards group for folding electronics. They just had a meeting the other week. And folding screens has been sort of the holy grail. The company Royole was the first one out with something that you could put your hands on. They were showing it at CES a couple of months ago. Now Samsung came out with this folding phone that sort of folds like a book.
Yep.
Was it Huawei?
Huawei, I believe. Yeah.
Huawei came out with a phone that sort of folds back on itself, and no one is talking about why you would want this. No one's talking about the use case. No one's talking about the ruggedness of it. I mean, these flexible screens are fine, but I promise you, they're not covered with Gorilla Glass.
No.
So you've got a $2,000, $2,500 tablet. Let's call it a tablet.
Yeah.
That folds up and that can fit in your pocket, and that's really expensive, and that can probably get scratched and damaged easily.
Well, as I was saying,
and I'm not sure I see the downside to this.
Yeah,
right?
well, right. I was, we were joking about it earlier. You put a hinge in the middle of a screen, what could possibly go wrong? And I mean, this to me, I mean, look, I get it. The technology is cool. It is very cool to see these things, being used, even though I'm not quite sure how you'd use them day to day. But it feels more like this is, technology advancing for the sake of technology advances, not for some sort of real world. It's not I don't know what problem it's solving.
Well, we've never seen that before, have we?
No, of course we haven't.
No, of course we haven't. I mean, I'm flexible. I understand flexible screens. I understand use cases for flexible screens. I can see them, flexible screens and flexible batteries in smartwatches. I can see them in medical technology.
Sure.
I can see them built onto car dashboards. I think you could build a fabulous dashboard with a big, flexible kind of swoopy display. I do not understand this for folding it and putting it in your pocket. The only form factor this makes sense to me is if you wanted to bring back the flip phone, because for a flip phone closed down, you're protecting the screen. The flip phone fits in your pocket well. In a lot of ways, I missed the flip phone. Yep. I was a big flip phone fan. You can hang up the phone with a good thwack by closing it, and you by God, you hung up that phone. So
it's back to the future.
Maybe you'll see a flip phone. And there are rumors about Motorola coming out with a full screen Razr phone.
Wow. Okay. So
that might be one of those take my money moments.
Yeah. All right. Well, all right. I'm gonna drive a nail in the wall if you do that. Then we'll have to revisit if that comes out. But it does feel like it's like sort of Back to the Future. You've got the technology that's here now, but not solving a problem. But it may spur a different kind of form factor than what we're used to. Again, back to the flip phone or however you want to describe it. But it does feel like. Go ahead.
These candy bar phones are not a great form factor. You're carrying around 7 inches of really expensive, fairly fragile glass.
Yeah.
How many people have you seen walking around with screens that are just smashed to bits?
Yeah. Yeah.
So some technology, some display technology that you could maybe fold over to protect.
Wow, that sounds like a problem that technology might actually solve. Who knew? All right, so to sum up, the Samsung Galaxy S10 line, very good, very evolutionary phones that if you really have to have the latest and greatest from Samsung, you'd be fine buying it. But we're on the cusp of the move to 5G. You're locking yourself into the old network, which within the next year or two is likely to be replaced by 5G fairly widespread. Although there's still some questions about that. And I think we're on the same page when it comes to folding phones. That's just an idea that needs to fold, as it were.
Well, it's just an idea that's maybe in need of a little more evolution,
A little more refinement, shall we say?
a little more refinement.
Okay, great. Any final thoughts before I let you go, Dan? We cover everything we thought
I'm
we
good.
wanted to.
No,
Good.
I think we covered it all.
All right, we'll have to come back with the faux AT&T faux G sometime and have another discussion.
Absolutely. Love to talk 5G.
Okay, great. Dan, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me. For now, for Mobile Week, Mobile Month, whatever it is, that's a wrap.